crews are working to get heavy equipment like bulldozers out of the fire. As you can see behind me, there are huge plumes and active flame. Mike, 240 hours. That's all tribe members say they were given to sift through dirt where construction members found Wintu remains. A constant battle between illegal grows, which take up thousands of acres in Siskiyou County, and local law enforcement that's begging lawmakers in Sacramento to make a change to help their county. But we will continue to update you on the road closures as well containment of the fire. More than 1 million lights spread out across 10 acres here at the Arboretum. So we checked in with the Shasta County Sheriff's Office to see how they're dealing with illegal grows here locally quickly. So it's important to be careful, safe, and fire smart this fall. She was going to fight for herself and her family. Fire uses this opportunity for a prescribed burn, not only for vegetational management, but also for educational opportunities. Polls are officially closed, and now it's time to count those ballots. But that's going to take a while. The solution to this problem that could impact not just California as a whole, but your community locally.
Yeah, so the biggest impact would be
because of high winds averaging about 20 miles per hour. As you can see, there are many spot fires from this fire. Don't have landline service, which is important because there's hardly any cell phone signal out here, which means houseboat owners will be paying about 20% more in taxes. He says there are 3 main issues that have contributed to the price increase, and that includes supply chain issues, the cost of lumber, and shipping delays. Shared similar stories about a doctor they trusted that assaulted them and impact their lives forever. Good evening and thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Mason Carroll. The champion Golden State Warriors will look a little different next year, shaking the world. And even here in California, locals came together to honor those who lost their lives. Out in Redding, one well-known police department dog is opting for a life with more chew toys and less bad guys. They just need the right support. Reporting in the studio, Mason Carroll, the North States News.
Breast cancer impacts the lives of many, whether you experience it yourself or if you know someone who does. KRCR's Mason Carroll joining us live outside Mercy Medical Center in Redding tonight with the story of one patient who is defying all odds. Mason.
Dylan, 1 in 8 women will be diagnosed with breast cancer in their lifetime, and there's only a 25% survival rate for those diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer. However, one Redding woman said she wasn't going to be another statistic, and she was going to fight for herself and her family.
When you hear the word stage 4, it sounds like a death sentence. It's like it hits you pretty hard. That's the last stage.
Tisha Russo had noticed a lump on her breast she thought was a cyst. She put off going to the doctor because none of her symptoms aligned with breast cancer. But when the results came back, it was a stage 4 breast cancer diagnosis with maybe 2 years to live.
These are the words that stuck in my head getting my diagnosis. Stage 4, surgery is not an option. You should think about traveling. Those kinds of words told me I was dying. So a lot of things passed through my mind. Most of it was my children's lives and the things that I would be missing.
Despite the odds against her, Tisha decided to fight with the support of her family and friends behind her every step of the way.
I do want to try whatever is the best treatment, even if it's going to be hard.
One of the biggest supporters was her husband, Michael.
When you say your vows in the first place, in sickness and in health, and we are living that, and we're going to stick by each other no matter what.
So when their wedding anniversary with plans to renew their vows aligned with Tisha's treatment, they had the ceremony at Mercy Medical's Oncology Center where she was being treated.
And so we decided to renew our vows right there in the treatment room and just have all the other patients celebrate with us.
During her treatment, Tisha has used humor, a positive outlook, and family support to get her through, which she has 6 years after her initial diagnosis. She still gets treatment every 3 weeks, but is hopeful one day she'll be able to ring the bell, cancer-free.
The chemo worked. The new treatments that they're coming out with all the time are just, I know they're going to come up with something that is going to be the one that stops my treatments, and I'll be able to move on. So
now Tisha is still receiving treatment at Mercy Medical Center, but she also is teaching dance and theater, and she has no plans on stopping anytime soon. Reporting in Redding, Mason Carroll, the North States News.
A Redding police officer known for the number of DUI arrests he's made has cost the city almost $150,000 in settlements related to accusations of civil rights violations. The North States News' Mason Carroll has been tracking that money, and she's here with us. Mason.
Mike, Jacob Provencio was named top cop by Mothers Against Drunk Driving in 2017. And just earlier this year, he was recognized by the city for making 2,000 DUI arrests. However, we've received 2 settlements from the city involving Officer Provencio. One of those involves former firefighter Miles Quaife, who says during a traffic stop 3 years ago, Provencio molested him and permanently damaged his shoulder.
Like getting molested, it's not like that doesn't mess around with my mind. It's not like I see every Reading police officer now and trust them.
Miles Quaife is a Reading native. He describes himself as determined and disciplined to the point of being called boring. He takes fitness seriously as a former firefighter and competitive strength athlete. One chilly night in mid-October of 2019, after studying all day for a grad school test, he was taking his girlfriend home at 1 in the morning. He was headed north on Shasta View when he made an illegal left-hand turn onto Highway 44. That's when Reading police officer Jacob Provencio started following him.
And that vehicle started tailgating me at a high rate of speed that was very unsafe, and I wasn't sure what was going to happen, honestly, because the vehicle was tailgating me so close I couldn't see its headlights.
Provencio eventually pulled him over. This is when Quaife says the night took a turn.
You know, he asked me at that time if the rules were for everybody else, and I said, no, they're not. He said, well, why did you take the turn? And that kind of ensued for about 2 to 3 minutes.
Quaife did not have his physical license, but provided Provencio with his license number. Provencio said he could not identify Quaife and told him to step out of the car.
And he just happens to take his hand, puts it in my shorts, and molests me. And it wasn't like it was a brush looking for a pocket. He grabbed a handful of me. There was no pat down on my legs. It was just, he put his hands in my shorts.
He says he tried to respectfully answer Provencio's questions for another 5 minutes before Provencio put his hands on him once again.
And at that point, he bum rushes me. As I'm sitting like this, he grabs my arm, puts it in a rear wrist lock to rear arm bar, pulls it out, pulls it behind, and uses that to elevate me around the front of his bumper to the rear passenger door on the side.
Quaife didn't know it at the time, but he says these few seconds would leave him with permanent nerve damage in his arm, ending his career as a competitive strength athlete. Injury, all because of a left turn. How does that...
That's exactly what I keep trying to reconcile, because it's probably one of the most frustrating things I've ever had to swallow.
After more questioning, dispatch was finally able to identify him. Provencio gave him a ticket and he was able to go home. Quaife wanted to put a complaint in immediately after, but first came traffic court, where he says Provencio continuously lied about the stop.
He said that I was, reeked of alcohol, just this picture of someone who I've never been, let alone with a law enforcement officer, And so, it was just, it was almost, he just hasn't told the truth from the get-go. Not from the traffic stop, not from in front of the county commissioner, not to his supervisors.
Quaife decided he couldn't stay quiet about what happened to him and started working to take the city and Provencio to court.
It's incredibly frustrating. I have always tried to be an above-board individual, probably to the extent of being called boring by most people. To have that kind of come full circle to trying to be as disciplined as you can, especially with fitness and my health, because I've taken such a level to attain it, And so to have that negated over a left turn, I can't even put emotions to it or words to it because it is so frustrating.
He reached out to lawyers about a potential lawsuit. Many were reluctant to take on the case due to the connection to law enforcement.
You are fighting an uphill battle when you are taking on any type of complaint against a law enforcement agency.
Eventually, he and the city reached a settlement of $120,000. Quaife says it's not enough to replace what was lost, but he chose to avoid a longer legal process. Today, Quaife still has nerve damage in his arm and will for the rest of his life. He still respects law enforcement, but that trust has been broken. He says there needs to be accountability and for the good officers to take Provencio's place. What's the best outcome for this, even after all these important things have been taken away from you?
I think the biggest thing is just that people own up to their mistakes. I want good police officers to be safe. They have to have latitude to make decisions. But it's like when I'm being respectful to you as possible and you molest me and take away a big portion of my life as far as being a strength athlete, and so to get that taken and then look at the system, it's hard to know.
Now, I did reach out to Chief Bill Schuler about a comment on Officer Provencio. He says, by law, personnel matters are confidential and cannot be disclosed except in certain limited circumstances, and I am unable to comment on any personal matters related to Officer Provencio. I also reached out to the City Attorney, Barry DeWalt, about the settlement, and he says, in all cases, we try to reach settlements that are advantageous to the City of Reading in each case. We look at the totality of the circumstances in each case to determine handling. Each case is different because the factual scenario in each case is likewise different. Now, I have reached out to Provencio 3 times while working on the story, but have not received a response. Provencio is also the target of pending litigation accusing him of sexually assaulting a woman during a DUI arrest. To read more on that case and to read this full settlement, you can go to krcrtv.com.